Good morning there. So this one is called End of Life Illnesses. So last night I was given instructions to make a series of films about dementia and Alzheimer's. However, this is actually what I have to do first, because it's an even bigger subject than dementia and Alzheimer's, which is an absolutely huge subject in its own right. So when a person is going through an illness which is their prelude to the end of their life, there's a dynamic which erupts into existence, and I don't ever hear of anyone talking about this at all. I don't know anywhere you can go to read about it, but it's something I've got very extensive experience with. So this is what I need to talk about before I go into the other matters. So if a person is approaching the end of their life, and it's not a process of acceptance, very important, if it's not a process of acceptance, then they're going to be in a state of resistance. And when a person is in a state of resistance, one of the most likely things that's going to happen is they're going to be beset by an illness, or maybe even a series of illnesses, and it could be something as long and drawn out as something like cancer, or it could be something, or Parkinson's, for example, or it could be something of such short, relatively sharp duration as something like pneumonia. If the person is going through their end of life process and they are in resistance, what they will do is something quite automatic. On an energetic basis, they will latch on to the energy of those that are closest to them, and this often, but not always, means we're talking about a family member. So when this happens, it's a really distressing thing, as you can probably imagine, because if supposedly, as an example, you're the carer of that person in their end of life process, then not only are you dealing with all your feelings about this person preparing to take their leave of you, but you also might be dealing with their furious, frenetic and quite frantic attempts to grab hold of you energetically, latch onto you energetically, and draw whatever energy they can out of you. Yes, it really can be this bad. So I'm speaking from personal experience, and also the personal experiences of people that I know very well, and people that I've loved very deeply indeed. Happened to them all. And what really helped me was when I was doing tarot readings in the north of England, and it was the end of life process of the woman I'd been married to. And one of the tarot readers, an Aquarian, a remarkable woman, she explained to me what was going on with the dynamic, because with Cinder, there was Cinder, and then there was our son, our daughter, and myself. And she helped to explain something that I don't think I would ever have been able to divine for myself, because I was far too emotionally and spiritually and everything else involved in that process. So what she explained is that with that particular illness, which from a shamanic perspective has got a great deal to do with a form of demonic possession, which is literally the harbinger of the end of the life of that person, something as serious and severe as that, what actually was happening is the three people involved, so Cinder's son, daughter and ex-husband, we were all involved, and we were all sources of energetic nourishment for her in that time, because she was very much in a state of resistance to the whole process. That's the key I'm wanting to point out. People who are end of life, who are in a place of acceptance, it's a completely different story. So in this situation, what my tarot reader acquaintance was explaining to me is we were all holding different positions. So Cinder's daughter was holding the position of day-to-day involvement, so she really was at the cold face of the whole thing, experiencing the greatest effect on her. And then Cinder's son was very much more removed, and he was actually holding the energetic space of the end of life process as well, from a distance. So as one is holding the process from close up, the others holding the process from a distance. And the third one, which was her husband, what he was doing, he was going in and out of what was a very toxic environment indeed. And by going in and out, he was supplying a third level of support. And in that particular situation of one individual's end of life, that was what it took to be able to handle that process for the one whose end of life it was. So I'm saying this because if you're in a situation, and this is a world issue, you see, there was a time, relatively speaking, if you go back, when there was a lot more acceptance about the process of death and dying. But death and dying have become such a taboo, particularly in all the Western dominated countries of the world, with these Western ethics, cultural ideologies and ethos and all the rest of it. This is where the greatest resistance is to be found. So in all these countries, the majority of people actually do their end of life process in a state of profound resistance. So this is much more likely to be the case. So if you are experiencing, supporting and caring for someone at their end of life, please be aware that these people are doing it completely unconsciously. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't even know why they're doing it. And certainly in our case, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know why it was happening until this tarot reader explained to me in the closing stages of that journey just what was going on, and I was able to see, understand and grasp how these roles were so very important. So when it comes to someone's end of life, please be aware that what is going to happen if they're in resistance is that they're going to be automatically linking into you and drawing your energy. That's the first thing. And the second thing, which is even more emotionally distressing, and everything I've spoken about so far, and everything I've spoken about so far is hard enough. The other thing that can happen is the supporter, the carer, can end up taking on qualities of that person, taking on characteristics, taking on part of that journey, which really isn't theirs, but it becomes so by proxy. So I'm making this film for everyone who's in this situation, but there is someone I'm very close to going through something like this, and when she grasped what was happening to her, and this is the thing I need to explain to you, because for example in the case of my mother, her journey really began with my father's death in 2010, so it was really a 10-year process. So it was in my case, it was a 10-year process where I literally was having my energy drained from me to the point I had to give up all my shamanic work, all my retreat hosting. I had to give it all up, and I actually found myself withdrawing more and more from association with other people until I was not having really any contact with any friends, and pretty much very, very minimal contact with the family, because so much of my energy, time, passion and emotional life was bound up in my mother's journey, and I wasn't completely aware of it at the time. So because she is a shaman, what she did is she created what we call an empty-handed magic ceremony, and she managed to put things into the right perspective and actually reclaim herself in that powerful process that she's going through, and literally found all her powers and abilities returning to her. So that's what I was not able to do when my mother was the end of life process, and I'm so grateful that she has been able to do this, because of course she's going to be even more help, but she's not bound up in that way energetically. It's going to make a huge difference to levels of support that she can give. So that is my end of life issues that arise that people don't talk about film. Thank you very much. I'm going to follow this by some films about dementia and Alzheimer's in particular. Right, this is where I take a break.